In this video, we're going to have a look at how to edit and create slides so that you can create your own presentations for your church service or whatever you're creating presentations for. Thanks for joining us. Let's get going. All right, so once we open up ProPresenter, we have our view that looks something like this. Now, in our previous video, I talked about how to structure out your library and playlist and your items. And so that's why we have all these nice headings to make our church service look really smooth and just easy to understand. So what we're going to do today is just edit. And we're going to create some slides. They're going to look a little bit funny, but I just want to show you lots of different features. So a couple of things we need to understand first is how ProPresenter treats media and the different layers with different slides. So we have multiple layers, lots of different layers in ProPresenter, and they get displayed in a certain order. So the main thing we need to understand is that if I have a video or media that sits on the media layer in ProPresenter, that media will be displayed as long as it's on ProPresenter until it either gets cleared or it gets replaced with something else. So the best example here is in this song from the sample material. If I click on this slide here with the lyrics, up in my display here, it only shows the lyrics. However, the way that this is set up is when we go to our song, we get our animation in the background with our text and our CCLI information. And then when I go to the next slide, it shows the lyrics over the top. And I just keep working my way through the slides. The media background stays there until it either gets cleared or until it gets replaced. So if I came down here and I went to the next slide, it gets replaced by this background here. And when I go down to this section, my image takes over. So it's just something to be aware of, that if you have media sitting on a layer, it will stay there and keep playing or keep displaying if it's an image until it gets replaced. Now, I can clear it here and just clear the media, and then I've just got my slide content. So if we're in the middle of a presentation and it's just slipped past us that the media is still showing it shouldn't be, it's a one-click fix. I can get rid of my slide and just show my media, but there's a few options there as well. So when we think about media and creating slides, if it's something that you want to update semi-regularly, and it is like a background or a picture, it's probably best to leave it on the media layer, and then we can create our slide with our text separately to that. So here we'd have our lyrics over our image or over our video in the background, and then if I wanted to update my background, I just slide this one in, replace it, and now I have my purple background. So it could be something like a sermon series image. You might be changing it up every 2 or 3 months. You might be trying to change your backgrounds every couple of weeks to keep it fresh. Up to you guys, but just think about the structure. It's a lot easier to replace that one background slide there for this whole song than it is to change every single background on every single slide individually. So just be aware of that when we go to design it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually create some more slides for our MC spot. So at the moment, we have a video and some text, and we're just going to go in here, and I'm just going to remove a couple of things because there are a couple of things already set up in here, and we don't really want them to be. So let me just go and remove all of these. All right. So I have my background and I have my text. So like we said a minute ago, you'll see down here is all the objects on my slide, and I don't have a background here because that background is sitting on the media layer, so it's separate. If I click off, I can see in my slide information over here on the right that my media action is this Visual Revival Dark Blast, and that's the actual name of the media. I can go to Inspector and play around with it if I want to, or I can choose a different type of media and upload it. You'll see here it sits in the background. If I choose foreground, it'll play over the top of the text. So we're going to use it in the background. We can also use video input for adding live cameras and stuff if they're plugged into our computer. But what we're actually going to do here is we're going to create a whole lot of slides. So we have our objects down the bottom left that are on our slide, and we have our editing tools over here on the right. So once I choose text, I end up with all of these options for just the shape of the text and the box and things like that. I have all my text options, and build is another name for transition. So if you like animations and slide transitions in PowerPoint, you will love the build feature. I personally am not a huge fan of build or transitions, but that is just personal preference. So what we're going to do here is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new slide. So I'm going to go up to the top, add new slide, and now I just have a plain old text box. And I'm going to firstly take this text, so I'm right click and I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to put it on this page by itself. Because I know even though this slide has the video on it, that it'll just carry through all of my slides because it's on the media layer. So there's my first slide. So just plain old text. Now I might decide, oh, I might actually add a shape to that. So to add things to a slide, this big plus, we've got text, shapes, media, like pictures and things, video input, so like live cameras or web stuff. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to add, oh, let's just go with a rectangle. And that rectangle, I'm going to actually make a nice little divider under my text. Something like so. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a logo. So if I open up my folder here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag in one of my images. It already exists in ProPresenter, so this is why this is coming up. So I can either use the file that's in ProPresenter, use the new one I've just uploaded, or write over it. So if you've got the same name, you might want to write over it. I'm just going to use the existing one because I know it's the exact same file. And I'm just going to throw it down here in the corner. Now, if I was doing this for church properly, I should have a transparent background where that white is with a PNG. But we're not going to go and waste your time making one of them right now. I can then go and have a look in here and change a bunch of things if I wish to. But I'm happy right now. So there it is. I have a slide, a text, a shape, and an image. Now I am going to duplicate that. And on this slide, what we're going to do is I'm going to just show you a couple of tricks for dealing with text that changes size. Now, this could be something like the Bible verses or speaker notes used by your speakers each week at church. So a little trick here. If you want to set up your slides and your general structure, it's a great idea for your church service. And then you're just adding a few slides or taking them away. There's a slightly different number. But sometimes the amount of text changes, but we still want it to look good on our screens. So what we can do is, if we make this, say, a Bible verse, and we were after a Bible verse that was real short this week, we might go into text, and we put this up on our screen in church, and we go, oh yeah, that looks probably a little bit small, so we might change that to 100. Okay, good. So 100 looks pretty good on my screen in church for everyone in the audience. If it's a little big, change it down. If it's a little small, change it up. That's fine. And then what we're going to do is once we've got the right size, we can actually choose the scale box. So you can either scale your text up to fit your box and set your box to a size, or you can scale your text down to fit your box, or you can change the size of your box to your text. There's lots of options here. So if I scale this up, it's going to go as big as my text box. So if I change the size of my text box, the text changes sizes. That is hard to say. If I change my text to scale down so it fits, when I change size, it only changes down, and no matter how big my text box is. So what I like to do for my church is I find the size I like. So 100 is looking pretty good. And then I choose scale down because then I know it's never going to be gigantic. And so what happens is, if I then end up with a very long Bible verse, it just automatically changes the size for me. And so I always know it'll fit. Now, if we couple this with the reflow tool, we can always guarantee we have nice looking slides within a matter of clicks, no matter how much text there is. Now, when I say reflow, there's a tool up here called reflow. which I'm going to make another video about for you, but go and watch that when it's up. But it essentially allows us to split our text into multiple slides if needed in a couple of clicks and make it look really nice in the process. So we might go, oh, that's actually too small, and we might want to split this part here into 2 slides. We'd use Reflow, do it in 2 clicks instead of having to copy and paste and create a new slide. But that is a nice little trick there. Or we can fit it to the container size, to the text, but it's just a handy trick to know about, so that when you're dealing with different size content each week, your actual slide is like a template and it actually fits really nicely. So let's get that in the middle. So that is our pretend Bible verse with scaling. Now I'm going to duplicate that slide because I'm lazy and don't want to make a new one. So I'm just going to right click and go duplicate. Now in here, one of our volunteers has decided to mess around, and they've actually accidentally gone and changed everything, including our font, and it's underlined and it's just too big, and they've actually deleted that, and that's okay, and now it's also bold and it's just a mess. So the easiest way to fix this, or if you want a slide to look the same as something else, we're going to come into here, we're going to copy that style, and we go into this other slide, and all we do is paste that style. Now that changes all of these settings to the exact same thing. So I've just pasted my text back in as well that I had copied to my clipboard. But the copy style and paste style is a really helpful feature if you're changing a font or something similar across multiple slides, because you can just set your first slide to it. Say I've decided that I want Shuey, and I actually now want it at 80 or 75, but I want it across all my slides. Copy style, next slide, text, choose your text, paste the style. There we go. It's all the same. It's still getting scaled down. Life is still okay. So that's another great feature. Other things you can do is, let's add a blank new slide. I can go and embed web pages up here, or I can also use an actual text box to do the same thing. So when I'm in my shape, the fill box here, we're used to using it for colors. So I might want to make a blue rectangle with some text, and that's perfectly okay. But you've actually got lots and lots of options in here of what you can do with it. So I could do a gradient. So that there already makes my slide look pretty professional. I can change the colors so it's going between different colors. I can change the angle of where it's coming from. I can go in and I can choose media, and so that would be uploading a picture or something else. And so if I wanted a picture that's only that size, I could do that. But what I want to show you is the web option, which is just a handy feature sometimes if you need to display certain things in church. So I can choose to embed a web page, and so there is my web page now on my slide. So I might want to show off a web page or something from the internet, and I can always resize it as well, because it's just using it as an image now, because it's filling that text box with the web page. A couple other things that are handy to know. You can use a video input, so if you've got cameras plugged in, screen previews, current slide image, next slide image. So they are what's on the next slide or the current slide. We can do different objects. We can do chord charts, planning center, group colors, all sorts of different stuff in here. But have a play around and just see what you can do. We've got stroke, shadow, feathering, visibility. Most of them we should know what they are, so we're not going to play around with them too much. If I add another text box, what I actually want to show you is another really helpful feature, and that is adding timers to things. So I might have, say, countdown to church, and I want this to be a timer. So I might put in a countdown to church heading, like so. And then I'm just simply going to move it to about there. And I'm going to add another text box. Change its size down to here. And so in this text box, I actually want it to count down. So the way that we do that is up the top here, we have our timers. And what I've done earlier is I've created a timer. Now it's called countdown to song. Let's call it countdown to church. And so what it's actually doing is, in this option, it's counting down to a time. So it's actually counting down to a specific time on the clock. I can count down a certain amount, so I could set it to 10 minutes, or I could time from 0 upwards. So we're going to count down to time. The time we're counting down to is we're going to make it 9 a.m. And we're going to just reset this and then click start. So at the moment, our timer is running. There's 10 hours, 23 minutes until church starts. I'm going to stop that for now. And so how I display this timer is I actually go into text and I go into linked text. Now, under our sources, there's lots of different options as well. So this is another great tool to know about. And I can go into timer and I can choose my countdown to church timer. Then I can change the look of it. So if I'm going to count down to church, I probably don't really need to include many hours in that. I might want to have minutes. I probably want to have seconds, and I'm going to get rid of the milliseconds. And so that's what our countdown will look like. I can also add color triggers so that when it reaches certain times, it changes to certain colors. Great little tip if you have a pastor that likes to talk well and truly over his timer or her timer. We can add colors to it to make it red so that they realize. So that can be added to the stage screen as well. But there we go, is our countdown to timer. Now that's not actually going to show and work on here until we're on our slide back in our presentation. But there's also lots of other things. So you can show information from your next slide or your current slide, which is great for your stage displays. Text ticker, scrolls text across the screen, stage messages, slide counts, playlists. There's lots of options in here. So just have a look, have a play around. There's just so many things you can do with this. It is super useful and helpful, and that is good. Now, the last thing I want to show you very quickly is just in the build. So these are our transitions. So if I had, let's say, my web page, I want it to show up first, then I want to bring in my countdown to church. I'm going to add a build, and I'm going to choose my transition. I'm going to choose a cube, and I'm going to make it nice and long. And then I'm going to add in let's do a flip for the timer. Make it nice and long so we can see it. And then I want both of them to leave together. So let's try this. Select both of them, add build for build out, add build, and we are going to go down here and do a square wipe for leaving, and we're going to make it nice and long, so 5 seconds. So now you can see here, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So what we can do to see that is we're going to go back to show, and we're going to flick through our slides really quickly. So there's our video we've just made. There's our, we're glad you made it today with our image. There's our text. There's, we're glad you made it today again. And then on our last slide, we have our embedded web page and nothing else. So if I click again, here it comes. There's our countdown to church, nice and slow. Click again. There is our timer. Click again. Countdown to church is slowly leaving. Click again, and our timer will slowly leave us. Now, it is very slow because we said 5 seconds. The other thing to note is that we have all these circles. So these circles indicate our builds are on our slide or our transitions. And each time we click, they turn green for us. So we can see which click will send us to the next slide. So that is a handy feature if you're into animations to note. Now, you will note that my timer is not doing anything because I haven't actually started it. So if I click start on my timer, now we can see that my timer is counting down on my slide and it is live. So let me just show you again. There's our live timer and it's counting down to church. So there's lots of options there. The last thing I want to show you very quickly is our slide notes. So we've set up all these slides, and where I find slide notes really useful is that I can set up a slide and then I can also set up notes on that slide and then display them on my stage display. So if I had, say, a slide that said announcements, I could put in notes for each of those announcements or what the announcements are. So the person standing on the stage can see the announcements and can just read through them. Or if I had each announcement on the screen, the person on the stage gets a little bit more information so that they can stay on task and get the information across well. So to do that, on our second "We're glad you made it today" slide, we might just rewrite this as announcements. And we go down the bottom right here and we click slide notes. And so we can add our notes in here. So we might say something like new church phone number, Christmas service next week, and life groups are on again as always, because your life group is your lifeboat and you should be in one. So there's our slide notes, and then to get rid of it, I can just click slide notes. And we can link that through to our stage display, which we'll talk about in our stage display video. So that's just another quick little thing there as well. And the last little trick I want to show you is editing text. So if I'm on my main screen here, and we know now we can change our video and we can go through and we can, have a different background video. But what happens if I go, announcements, I actually want that to say, announcement today. All I need to do is right click and go quick edit. I don't have to go all the way into edit. I can just quick edit it and change my text real quick. Hit the X, done. When I click it again, it shows the change. So anytime we're changing just text, it's a really quick job, and now it's changed already. So that's a neat little trick for you to know about editing slides as well. Hopefully this video is helpful. I know it's a bit long, but I will put in all the time stamps for you. And if you've made it this far, thank you. Let me know if you've got more questions in the comments, or if you're not sure how to do something, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, guys.